Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. My guest today hails from the Palmetto State of South Carolina. Mr. Matthew Peck is president of the Matthew Peck Agency, specializing in digital marketing for small businesses. Matthew started his first business, a martial arts studio, just 3 months after graduating from high school. He has served as marketing director for Palmetto Distillery, where he managed the social media presence and created national campaigns to grow the company's presence in new markets, including creating a European distribution and marketing plan for the company, helping take Palmetto Distillery international. Matthew's latest projects included overseeing a $1.2 million build-out of the multi-location UFC Gym that included building brand awareness, running marketing campaigns, and growing local following using both digital and traditional marketing. Matthew has numerous certifications in areas such as web design, social media marketing, and other digital marketing areas. And when he's not working on digital marketing projects, he can be found in the gym preparing for his next Spartan Race or his next competitive martial arts match. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
You bet. So we're gonna have to get into talking about your pursuits in martial arts and the Spartan Race in a little bit. But tell us a little bit first about what exactly it is you do with digital marketing. What does that term mean to you, and how should folks understand that term?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the world of digital marketing, it changes at a rapid pace. What works one day can not work another day. And so what I've learned is that digital marketing for me is meaning to learn to be flexible and adaptable to different situations that change in the marketing world. One of the biggest things is that we hear companies and people talk about you need this product or you need this product. What I've learned is every business is so unique and individual, even if they're in the same category, that their digital marketing plan should be customized to what they need and what they do. What works for one company may not work for another. So for me, digital marketing is about understanding how customers find you online and then how you connect, reach, and engage with them.
So what are some of the tools then that make up that process?
There's several tools that make up the overall digital marketing campaign, because when you think of digital marketing tactics, you hear things such as website design, SEO, PPC, social media marketing, and so much more. But what I've learned is that your digital presence isn't about the services that you do. It's more about how they interact with each other, and it really determines how your story brand is online. A major shift has happened over the last 6 to 8 months in which people really don't care as much about the products that you're selling as much as the story that you're telling. And in understanding how to relate that story to an online presence is very, very different than just throwing some keywords out there.
So that's each of those things that you mentioned. It's, as somebody who's trying to do this, build my brand, there's a lot of intimidating pieces in there. How do you deal with that?
There are a lot of heavily intimidating pieces out there. And one thing I can say is you can always research and do more research on your own and read articles of what's going on. But when it comes to personal brand, it's about understanding who you are and how you relate to people. Most business owners have a product or service that they are passionate about. And so it's taking that passion and putting it in front of the right people at the right time with the right message and speaking directly to them.
So what does an ideal client look like to you?
Typically, my ideal client is, I do two different sides of it. One side is I do work with stores that are brick and mortar. They can be anywhere from a restaurant to a chiropractor. I don't necessarily niche down to just one specific type, because when you follow a brand guide, you can actually create a brand for any company. The other part that I work on is typically with other consultants and people who are digitally based. So they may have a digital product that they're trying to sell. They're not brick and mortar. But once again, creating that message online in a very competitive atmosphere. So I have both sides of businesses, but typically it can be a small shop anywhere from 1 employee to under 12. Typically anything over that, I send to friends of mine who are also business consultants who work with much larger industries.
Now, you mentioned about digital products. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're defining that one? There's all these terms. These are terms that we've all had to deal with, right? If you're starting a business, and especially something over the internet where you're doing some digital marketing on your own, as I said before, there's so much that is so intimidating, and there's all these terms like digital product that we all see and try to use, and some of us, and I'm pointing to myself, may not use these terms correctly all the time. So what does that mean to you, digital product?
A lot of times digital products, you'll find them, my definition for them is typically online learning courses that people have, or it may be an ebook or something along those lines. Typically, they're going to be built out to a funnel. So you'll see it from a lead magnet to a core offer. Have some early tripwire offers in there. But the digital product itself is you're getting put into a membership site. You're getting put into something that you only really do online, in other words. A lot of times it typically is a learning course.
All right. Well, that makes sense. What are some of the things that you've run into with your clients? Maybe some myths or some misconceptions about dealing with digital marketing?
So there's a couple of those actually that come to mind. The first one is, I need everything. Part of what I really worked on when I first started doing my own marketing for other companies and really broke out into the consultant role is that big companies will tell you that you need A, B, C, and D. But what you find out is that there's always something new and they'll always tell you need it. But if you're talking to a sales rep for a major company, if they don't offer a specific product, so let's give an instance. Let's say they build websites and do Google AdWords, but they don't do social media or SEO. When you talk to that sales rep, guess what he's not going to talk about? SEO and social media. He's only going to talk about the products he offers. When really you could benefit primarily from a social media marketing campaign or from SEO. So when you talk to companies who don't do everything, they're going to leave out things that you may truly benefit from. So my goal was to make sure that I didn't talk about any specific product. I talked about the business. And that's where I think my differentiator came in, is making sure that people understood I'm not selling a specific product or service. I'm selling the strategy that you need to be successful. And the other part of that is in digital marketing. Typically we think if it's our business, we think of how we look at it. We very seldom put ourselves in the shoes of our consumer and how they look for it. When we call things by certain names, they do not call them by those same names. When we search for something, they're not searching the same we are. So when we plan our marketing based on what we do and the way we think, we're failing to interact with the right customers by not looking from their perspective. So I make sure I take an outside approach from it and ask very unique questions to help make sure I understand exactly what it is the consumer is looking for, not what the business owner is looking for.
Yeah, it's a good point when you talk about looking at it from the customer's perspective. One of the big things right now that I'm trying to kind of wrap my brain around is when you're dealing with the in-home assistants, Alexa and such. And the discussion now is that you need to have your online presence set up for that type of search. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically what you're talking about in those types of voice searches that happen with the search assistants, even Google on your phone has updated. If you have when you type in for Google and you head there, you've actually got 2 notification icons. You have a microphone so you can speak to it. They've also got a camera now. That I'm speaking to the camera as well. That small little image that's on that is because you can take a photo of something and Google will find photos that are similar to that image.
Wait, where do you see that at?
So whenever you're on your smartphone, open up your Google part of it. There are 2 actual little ideas right there. One is a camera and one is actually a microphone. So when you click that microphone, you ask it a question. What they're referring to is typically your long word search key terms. So it's your website has to speak in a manner that your consumers are looking for. It's no longer robotic digital marketing, Greenville, South Carolina, only this, only that. It's very much a question of such things as what is digital marketing? And the way you can actually utilize that is if you go to places like Quora or answerthepublic.com, they will type in your search term that you're looking for. They will actually find the most common questions online for you. I'll give you this as an idea. One of the things I recommend to a lot of my clients when they're not sure what the kind of content they should create, by going to Quora and going to askthepublic.com or answerthepublic.com, they can actually just take one of those questions and write a short snippet about it. And they can actually record those snippets into podcasts and audio bites that are picked up online, helping them rank higher in search engines.
Interesting. So I read an article recently about this, and it also talked about when you punch a search into the Google search bar up there, that further down in the page, it will also give you a list of other questions that people have asked that are similar. That will also give you some of this information as well. But I guess the point here being that when you were talking earlier about looking at it from the customer's perspective, is that even with this voice search and setting yourself up to work with that, you have to be thinking about how your customers are searching for a business like yours, right?
Yeah, it's to give you an instance. Typically inside a business, we have words and terms that we use for things. Like we call a tool or something that by a very specific name. And by calling it by that certain name may not be something that someone else is looking for. I always relate it to my dad owns a cabinet shop. And when I was younger, he would say, hey, can you go find me that 3/8 wrench that's like this, this, or this? And I didn't know what that was. And so I'm like, you have to describe it to me differently because I didn't know what it was. And so when we're talking to our consumers, we have to think of it. They don't know what it is. A lot of times people in medical professions, doctors, dermatologists, dentists, chiropractors, they have certain names for tools they use that the public doesn't know. So they have to be able to describe what it is a little bit differently than how they would. I always say, and Donald Miller mentioned in his book, Building a Story Brand, is it has to pass the caveman test, which is a caveman should be able to look at it, understand what you do, how to find it, and what the next steps are. And your marketing has to relate to that because people are in a rush. They don't have time to look up a whole bunch of specific things. They want to find something super specific that they understand. So we have to think of it from a consumer standpoint, not from our standpoint.
Right. And we're also teaching like Alexa how to answer those questions. So when your customer or prospective customer asks that question, Alexa recognizes that the digital information you provide is the answer to that question. Is that about it?
Yes, that's correct. People always ask common questions, how do I become more relevant when I'm doing this? I tell them, answer the questions that are most commonly asked and then find the next question and do something with it daily.
That's a little bit of a shift, I think, than what we've done over the last many years in terms of from a business owner's perspective and trying to put your information out. Look, let's face it. What happens on the internet changes, so frequently now that there's always something new to learn. But for many years, it was not necessarily thinking about it as you're talking about it from the customer's perspective. It was, here's what I do, here's the information I think you need to know. But we've certainly made this shift where I think prospective clients have already a lot more information before they ever come to us. And so it's no longer a situation where we hoard this information and dole it out as we see fit as business owners, but rather we need to provide something a little bit different to our customers now and our prospective customers and partners in the fact that we have to understand that they have a lot of this information and we have to be able to give them, I guess, some of the fine tuning.
You are 100% correct. That information asymmetry is always, it's what's changed the world. The internet changed the world because it used to be to go buy a car, you had to go to the car dealership and talk to the salesperson to know what the car featured and everything like that. But now you find everything you need online. When you end up at that location, you already know what you're planning on buying unless someone can convince you otherwise. And it's not just the car industry, that's everywhere. It's a super competitive market. And that's one of the best things about it. So we have to be able to relate our information in a better way to our consumers so they feel more trusting of us and we can build our authority that we are the experts in the market.
Yeah, and I think, I can't recall the name of the book right off the top of my head. Daniel Pink talks about this, and he uses the analogy of the car salesman as well, that it used to be, everybody's got kind of that image of the used car salesman in the plaid sport coat and, the slick back hair and what have you, who just sat back, like you said, and waited for the customer to come in so I could dole out the information. It's just not like that anymore. And you look at a company, for example, like CarMax, where they have that understanding that people have most of the information they need before they ever walk in the door. But what happens when you walk into CarMax and you still maybe have a question or two? Dude, they've got computers set up in the lobby of CarMax so that you can go and do further research right there inside the used car sales place. I mean, that is such a huge shift.
It is. And, I think one of the reasons it's a successful model is because typically when someone is not buying from you, if a consumer comes in, they talk to you and they're not buying from you, it's because they still have additional questions, but they don't feel comfortable asking them, which is one of the reasons they have it in there, is because you're going to do your research, but you don't leave the store before doing your research. So you're still there willing to make a sale or to purchase something from them. So it's actually a great shift. We can't really hide information anymore. We have to just be honest and transparent and just make sure they understand that we're the right person for the job.
Yeah, we have to be curators of this information and share more now. So it's a great point. So let's talk about maybe a good strategy that you could recommend for local businesses to include in their online marketing, or is there one specific?
Yeah, so there's never one specific, because every business is going to be a little bit differently. I've got a friend of mine who's starting a restaurant. His entire digital marketing plan is very different than someone else I know who just launched a shaving cream. So they're both online. They both have to have online presence, but one is going to be a brick and mortar restaurant. The other is strictly a online product that he's going to sell. He's not going to be in any stores. Typically, your website is going to be one of the most important parts of it, but it doesn't have to be a traditional website. We hear and see websites where it used to be, I'm going to pick this page, this page, this page, but really what you need is a good sales funnel. The sales funnel, and I'm not referring to any specific product or service that's a funnel. I'm talking about the actual sales funnel itself that you can create, talking about how you get people to start interacting with you and how you actually increase the sales process. So my opinion is the biggest thing you need online is you need a good sales funnel.
Can you dive a little deeper into that? It was a sales funnel. Again, one of those terms that we've all seen and tried to wrap our brains around and couldn't, and said, to heck with that. I'm going to move on to the next shiny object.
Yeah, absolutely. So the sales funnel, and companies now, there are several companies out there that help you build pages that create sales funnels. But the sales funnel is something that you did. And I'm going to relate it back to the olden days, if you would, because we're talking about digital marketing, but I want to understand that the sales funnel has been around forever. When you used to get a piece of mail that came in, and it would say, fill this card out and send it back in for more information or to get something like that. That is the start of a sales funnel. That is a lead magnet, as we call them nowadays, where you may see it online as, give me your information and I will send you this PDF that has the topic you're looking for on it. So it's the same process online. It used to be you got it through the mail, or you would see it on TV, or you hear on the radios, call this number or do this action and I'll give you something in return. So now online is very much the same thing of, if you give me your email address or your phone number, I'm going to send you a piece of information with it. And after we get that piece of information, there's typically going to be another step in the sales process. That starts the process. The next step is going to be either a small commitment, what we call micro commitment offer, or it's going to be the offer itself. The sales funnel would be when you give you another instance is, let's say that a company is giving a free chimney inspection, right? The reason for the chimney inspection is to find problems with it. Maybe you as a homeowner know that you need to have it done because you've never had it done. But when they come out for the free, and I put that in quotations, inspection, the goal for them is to sell you a service. They're going to find things that are wrong with it. And then they're going to say, our recommendation to you is this package because it offers A, B, C, and D. And then they're going to also offer, by the way, we have a annual inspection plan that we'll sell you for an extra $14 a month, and we'll come out here, twice a year and service the chimney for you for free. So that's the sales process. It started with a free inspection, came into a recommendation for a product, into a sale, and then into an upsell. So the sales process is very much that. So you can actually build that entire funnel online.
And so the sales funnel is a process more than it is just one specific thing, but it's a thing made up of these different pieces. And I don't imagine that looks the same every single time.
I wish it did, but no, it doesn't.
Make your job a lot easier, right?
It can be very different between different businesses. If you have a brick and mortar, say a restaurant, your sales funnel is going to be to get information so you can continue marketing to them through email, text message, and retargeting online. But if you have a product, I'm going to use a shaving cream as an instance. If you have something like that where you have only 2 and 3 products, it's going to look very different. If you were an author as an instance, or you were a speaker, your sales funnel is going to look 100% different. We see them all the time now where they're similar but not 100% the same.
Let's go back to talking about the websites for just a moment.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation on kind of the DIY process?
So it used to be a couple of years ago, it was you had to pay thousands of dollars to get a website built. And after it was built, you had to pay a couple $100s every time you wanted to update your name. I love the DIY people because it's the equalizer, right? And I've never been a person that's going to say, okay, it's $7,000 to build your website, and we're going to build your website, and then if you need anything else, you have to call me, and I got to put you on my books. It takes 3 weeks to get it done. The whole concept for places like Wix and Dude on Mobile and all these other companies, they want to make it easy. It's why they're successful. Is it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to do it. So I believe in it, but the difference is most people, when they first build their website, is they build it the way they see it, not the way their consumer sees it.
There we go, going back to that again.
So the strategy is we have to develop a strategy that makes sense, and then you can relate it to your website. Whether you do it yourself or you let someone else do it, it's that strategy that's the key component.
And the different pieces that go into it as well. And
right.
And again, I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. I try all these things myself first because I want to learn the processes and I want to learn how it works and the moving pieces. But there's what you find out is that there are the different pieces then that go into it, like SEO, like your sales funnel, that you have to have an understanding of all these things if you're going to build your own website. And you can certainly go out and you can buy, a nice theme for a fairly inexpensive price, or use a bunch of free themes or whatever the case, and have a pretty decent looking website. But there's a lot more to it than just kind of what the eyes are seeing on the screen. And again, what your eyes are seeing versus what the customer's eyes are seeing and trying to understand.
You are very correct on that. And I guess the other part of that I always find interesting is that I was just at a conference this past week, the Traffic and Conversion Conference in San Diego. And there's 2 things to it, right? Like you have the website, and the website is what we call the mousetrap. It's how you get people to buy your product, schedule an appointment, give you a call, whatever your call to action is, your website is where it's going to happen. However, how you get them there is the other piece of the puzzle, whether it's through SEO, it's paid traffic, it's social media, it's blog posts, it's whatever. That's one piece of it, and you have to get them somewhere so they can actually take an action. So that's the 2 pieces that you can have one or the other, but you really got to have both of them in conjunction. Your ads have to match what your online website says. Otherwise, people become confused and they don't trust you anymore.
Yeah, great point. What led you to help local businesses with their marketing with stuff like this? I mean, it's as we've mentioned several times, it's a lot to wrap your brain around. And how did you get to the point where you decided this is what you were going to wrap your brain around to help others?
So the short version of a much longer story, which will eventually become a book, I hope, is that my dad was self-employed forever. I mean, he is still self-employed. My granddad was also self-employed. When I first graduated high school in 2003, 3 months after that, I started karate school. I was self-employed. And I found out it's a rough road because I knew how to teach karate. I did not know how to run a business. I did not know how to market my business properly.
Therein lies the rub.
There it is. And so what ended up happening is I got myself a mentor, which was probably the biggest change in the course of the direction of my business, because they had been through it and I understood what they were doing and I got explanations for it. So as the years progressed, I became more and more enthralled with the marketing and sales of it. I would learn something that worked in my business, and I had other friends who ran businesses, and I said, hey, I learned this. I wonder if it would work in yours. So then I would start helping them with the same type of actions to figure out what was. I love digital marketing because it's never the same, and it's a constant matter of trial and error. And not just trial and error, but it's, did this work? Did this not work? And you have to constantly do something a little bit different and tweak along the way. So that's what led me to really take on this path is, one, I felt I was good at it. I got great results for myself. And I got great results for other business owners. And I would constantly get asked, hey, Matt, can you help me with this? And the answer was always absolutely. I believe in helping anyone that I possibly can, which is what led me to the role of consulting and running an agency like I do now.
What is there anything maybe in your background, and you've talked a little bit about working with your dad, is there anything else in your background where you kind of made a mistake or where you had to learn kind of a hard lesson that you carry with you today?
Oh, absolutely. I made lots of mistakes, which is why people work with me now, because they won't make the same mistakes I did. But give you an instance. When social media first started, right? Social media is a massive platform right now. It's not any one thing. is hundreds of microsites that have different things across it. One of my biggest mistakes was thinking, hey, if I just start telling people what I do online, they'll buy from me. That's how it works, right? Like I just tell them what I do online and then they show up at my doorstep with money in hand.
You're telling me that's not how it works?
Yeah,
what?
I'll tell you what, if it was, I'd be a millionaire by now.
No kidding.
But I had to learn how to craft the right message. I had to learn how to intrigue a person and how to explain to them that I was the right person for the job. So it was very much my learning experience to learn how important copywriting is online, and that you can't just write online the way that you talk. You can, it's not always the best recommended course of action for it. So in social media, it's very much the same thing. You can't just put something online and hope that it converts to something else. It really has to have certain elements into it with the right catchy headline with it, to the call to action, to everything that's in between. There's a formula that we use that makes it successful. It's very much a learning curve I had to do in the social media world because it changes daily.
Yeah, no kidding. So speaking of social media, do you have like a good tip for folks who are trying to increase their presence in social media?
Yeah, I do. It's and typically, once again, it goes back to people say I need everything. And you don't. You have to find where your core audience is, whether they're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, wherever they're at. You want to pick maybe just 2 or 3 and focus solely on those. You don't have to be everywhere. You just need to focus directly on those. But when you make your content, it needs to be relevant to the platform it's on. Facebook has a different audience than Instagram than it does on YouTube. So you can have the same topic. Once again, one of the tips I always give people if they're not sure what to write about is find out the most common asked questions and answer them online. But the way you answer them on Facebook is probably going to be in a long post with a short video at it. So you have 2 parts. Instagram, you only have a minute to talk, so you have to change the way you answer in that minute-long video. And on YouTube, you can make a video as long as you want it. So you have to take the same piece of content and alter it to fit the platform that it's on. But that's typically the best thing in post. Your social media strategy should be a strategy that's been developed with data backing it. And what I mean by that is understanding what the time to post is, the proper hashtags to use, what makes the most sense with your brand.
Wow. And there's a lot there. Do you have a favorite social media platform?
I am on Instagram more than anything else. It is my favorite platform because as in the world that we live in with short attention spans, you scroll past a lot of stuff really fast. And then typically, and people always ask, is it good to sell products on? And the answer is yes. I have bought several products off of Instagram. It works if you have the right call to action to it. So but I'm primarily on Instagram.
So I have just like very recently within the last few weeks gotten onto Instagram and, as kind of the old guy in the room, there's a little bit of a learning curve to that as well. It doesn't work the same as Facebook where all of us old guys hang out. But it's one of the things I've noticed is, I try to make a decision. Do I go, I guess, with this personal Instagram profile? Do I go with the business Instagram profile? What are your thoughts on that?
So that's actually the topic of conversation I'm getting ready to do a podcast on because it's a question I get asked all the time. When you look for me online, I have a business Facebook page. I have a personal Facebook as well, but I don't interact with my clients typically on it because it's a personal page. But on Instagram, I only have one brand because I know my archetype, and by knowing that, I know how my content should view it. So my Instagram is both personal and professional, but it works for me. It's not always going to be the same for everyone. And here's what I mean by that. If you are a business on Instagram and you post just business-related content, your audience is going to be very small because people aren't necessarily going to be interested in what you're doing. So by creating a personal brand and the professional side of it in one platform, I'm able to interact with more people because I can interact with people on a personal level when I get to my gym-related stuff and I'm hashtagging certain photos that are gym-related versus when I'm doing something for business and I have a different set of hashtags I use for it.
Yeah, so not unlike the other platforms where you have those kind of options. And I think, too, that even when you go with a business account versus a personal page or whatever, you still have to breathe some of your own personality into that business page and because you're still trying to connect. At the end of the day, Matthew, it's a connection thing, right? We're trying to connect with people.
It is. And Gary Vaynerchuk's a great example. Grant Cardone. I mean, most of us know who they are nowadays, but they were able to create a movement with their personalities. Guys like Russell Brunson, who's founder of ClickFunnels, he has a ClickFunnels page and then he has a Russell Brunson page, but his Russell Brunson page actually has more followers than the ClickFunnels page. So that gives you an interesting perspective of business versus personal branding. But he puts his personal branding into Russell Brunson, but he still uses it for work. When you click in the links in his bio, it still relates back to ClickFunnels. It's just on his personal branding page. So I said at the top we were going to kind of get back to this, and I'm looking over your right shoulder, I think, trying to look in this camera there's a Spartan helmet there. Yeah, there you go. And of course, folks listening to this can't see it, but there's a picture. A lot of the Marvel, is that right? Marvel? Yep. Comic posters up on the wall, and particularly the Spartan helmet there at the bottom. And so you're a Spartan Race participant, a mixed martial artist. How'd you get into that? So I've been doing martial arts since I was 5.
Wow.
Been doing it a long time. My parents put me in it because I was always the tiny guy in the room. I was the guy that got picked on a lot. And so they put me in to help build my confidence and my discipline because I was a little bit of a wild child too. So it worked. I just don't think they ever thought that would take over my life. But from the time I was 5 till even now, I still practice and I still work through it. When I owned the karate school, I taught classes. I taught people. I very much focused on self-defense and building discipline and respect inside youth. And we did it through a very military-style approach of, one-word commands and so forth. So we got a great response. But years ago, when I sold the business, I was looking for something else to do. And so that's when I went into marketing full-time. But my brother, who's a Marine Corps veteran, said, hey, he said, you're used to working out 7 days a week in karate. He's like, if you don't work out, you're going to get fat. So I was like, all right, man. So what should I do? Because him being a military person, he was also martial arts, but he was a military person. He's like, you need to go to the gym. I'm like, dude, I've never been in a gym a day in my life. And short version is I go to the gym daily now. I've changed my lifestyle a lot to kind of work with that since I'm not always in karate 7 days a week. But the Spartan races were brought up when I was at the UFC gym when I had started that project. Several people that were doing it, and I'm like, I don't run. Like, if you see me running, you need to run too, because that means there's something coming and we ain't going to get away from it. The Spartan races for me were cool because they involve running, but they're obstacle based. So I'm not like just running for several miles at a time. I've got a lot of things to do in between it. And for me, it became a personal goal to compete in these and improve my time. So it allowed my competitive nature to have a place to to vent out whenever I wasn't, getting kicked in the head or kicking people in the head.
So what's tougher, a Spartan race or a martial arts fight?
They are polar opposites. And that in a martial arts fight, you're literally getting in the ring with a guy whose only job is to beat you up. And you can't run far because the ring ain't that big. But in the Spartan races, you're competing with yourself a lot because there's no one there yelling, you have to do it. You have to motivate yourself to keep going. You have to have a personal goal and objective for it. So they are difficult in different perspectives.
So going to a Mike Tyson quote, I'll have to paraphrase. Mike Tyson once said something that everybody's got a great plan until they get punched in the face.
Pretty much.
With that in mind, Matthew, you've shared a ton of great information here today to help folks trying to get their digital marketing process going. How can business owners find out more about you and the Matthew Peck Agency and how you can help?
So the first thing to do is go to our website, which is mpeck.agency. And the second thing is actually connect with me on Instagram at Matt, Your Next Coach. Those are two of the best ways to actually connect with me and find out more information.
Matthew Peck of the Matthew Peck Agency. Man, thanks for joining us today, dude. I appreciate it. Tons of great stuff. Let's do this again sometime.
Hey, thanks, Rick. I appreciate your time.
All right, that's it for today. I am your host, Rick Brown. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.